The Deathworld Council chamber was older than most stars. It was carved from black stone taken from a planet that no longer existed. The air inside was cold, thin, and heavy with pressure. Not physical pressure, but the kind that crushed thoughts and bent wills. A wide circle of seats rose in layers around the center floor. Each seat held a ruler, a general, or a survivor. These were not gentle beings. Every species here had earned its place through pain. Some were massive creatures with thick plates of natural armor, their bodies shaped by crushing gravity. Others were thin and sharp, with glowing eyes and long claws, born on worlds filled with poison air and endless storms. A few did not even breathe oxygen. Their bodies hummed quietly, alive with energy that could melt steel. They were the Deathworld Council. They had survived what others could not. And today, they were deciding the fate of humanity. At the exact center of the chamber stood one human. He looked small, not weak, but small. He wore no armor, no shield, no weapon, only a dark uniform, clean and simple, and a small data tablet held loosely in one hand. His posture was straight. His breathing was steady. That alone made some council members uneasy. Humans were supposed to be emotional, loud, violent, afraid. This one was none of those things. Above the chamber, massive holographic screens hovered, showing images of Earth, blue oceans, white clouds, green land, a world that looked soft compared to the burning hells most council members called home. Whispers moved through the chamber. Too fragile, too unstable, too fast to fight. The High Arbiter rose from his seat. He was ancient, his body covered in deep scars that told stories of old wars. His voice echoed without effort, heavy and final. "Human representative," he said. "You stand accused. The lights dimmed. Your species has expanded too quickly. You adapt too fast. You fight wars you should not survive. You recover from losses that would end others." The Arbiter paused. "Humanity is hereby declared unstable, dangerous, and unfit to exist among galactic civilizations." A low sound spread across the chamber. Approval. Agreement. Several council members extended limbs toward their voting panels. The extermination option glowed faintly. The human did not move. He did not shout. He did not argue. He did not beg. Instead, he lifted his head slightly and spoke in a calm, even voice. "I request 3 minutes." The words were simple, almost polite. Laughter burst from one side of the chamber. A sharp, clicking sound from a scaled being whose species had wiped itself out twice before mastering cloning. 3 minutes? It mocked. To delay extinction. Others joined in, amused, curious, already bored. The High Arbiter studied the human carefully. "You will not threaten us," the Arbiter said. "You will not speak of war." The human nodded once. "I will not," he said. That answer caused the laughter to fade. After a long pause, the Arbiter raised one clawed hand. "You have 3 minutes." The chamber timer activated. The human tapped his data tablet once. A chamber timer activated. The human timer activated. The human tapped his data tablet once. Caught his data tablet once. Single file uploaded to the central display. No dramatic music. No flashing symbols. No warnings. Just text. The title appeared in plain letters. "Standard Human Medical RPOR to return louder this time." A medical file? This is their defense? They face extinction with paperwork. Even the Arbiter seemed confused. But then the council members began to read. The first few lines looked harmless. Height, weight, heart, rate. Some stopped laughing. Bone density measurements appeared. Muscle, fiber strength, pain response data. One armored giant leaned forward slightly. Another council members Breathing changed. Lines of data continued to scroll. Recovery times. Survival percentages. Trauma tolerance. A clicking sound echoed, this time not laughter, but stress. One of the thin, sharp-eyed beings froze, its pupils shrinking as it compared the numbers to its own species. Limits. This must be an error, someone whispered. The report continued. Anyway, injuries labeled non-lethal that matched. Fatal trauma records from half the council. Races. Blood loss levels listed as recoverable. Hard. Failure marked as reversible under conditions. The timer ticked. Down. No one spoke. Now. No one voted. The chamber, once full of noise and confidence, became still. Even the High Arbiter felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Fear. The human did not look at the screen. He watched the council. Instead, watched as warriors who had conquered Deathworld stared in silence at a single medical report, watched as certainty drained from their eyes. The timer reached the final minute. The laughter was gone. The votes were untouched. And in the cold, ancient chamber of the Deathworld Council, one truth settled heavily over them all. This was not a defense. This was a warning. Something was very wrong. The silence in the chamber did not break. It deepened. The Deathworld Council had faced many terrible truths before. They had watched suns explode. They had seen entire species vanish in fire, ice, and poison. Fear was not new to them, but this feeling was different. The central display continued to glow, filled with human medical data. Numbers, charts, and notes written in calm, careful language. No drama. No pride. Just facts. The High Arbiter did not sit down. He remained standing, his eyes fixed on the screen. Slowly, he raised one clawed hand. Explain, he said. The human representative nodded. Before he spoke, the chamber itself seemed to respond. The lights dimmed slightly, shifting into an analysis mode. The system began comparing the human report to standard Deathworld biology records. One by one, symbols appeared. Warning. Values exceed safe limits. A murmur spread through the council. A massive being from a high-gravity world leaned forward. Its species was known for unbreakable bones. They had evolved under crushing pressure, where a weak body meant instant death. Its voice was deep and heavy. These bone density numbers, it said slowly, they are lower than ours. Several council members nodded. The human did not argue. The display updated. Fracture recovery. Time. Javro. The giant froze. The system showed images. Human bones breaking, splintering, snapping. Healing. Weeks. Months. Not. Death. Not permanent weakness. Healing. That is impossible, the giant said quietly. The human finally spoke. Humans break, he said. Often. The words echoed strangely. On another tier, a thin insect-like being with glowing eyes studied the data. Its species came from a toxic world filled with acid rain and burning winds. They were fragile but precise. One mistake meant death. It pointed to another section. These pain tolerance levels, it said. Your nervous system should shut down. The report showed neural activity during extreme injury. Pain signals flooding the brain. But no collapse. No system failure. Instead, continued movement, continued action. The human's voice remained calm. Our systems do not shut down easily, he said. A cold sound passed through the chamber. Not fear yet. Calculation. The council had always believed pain was a limit. Pain stopped movement. Pain ended fights. Pain meant weakness. But the human report did not treat pain as a stopping point. It treated pain as information. Another council member spoke. A creature of pure energy, held together by a controlled field. What happens, it asked, when pain exceeds tolerance? The display answered. Humans screaming. Humans shaking. Humans bleeding. Humans continuing. The arbiter's claws tightened. Your species should fear pain, he said. The human looked directly at him. We do, he replied. We just don't obey it. That sentence struck harder than any threat. The system moved on. Survival statistics appeared. Heat exposure, cold exposure, radiation, lack of oxygen. The council watched in disbelief as humans survived conditions that should cause instant death. Not comfortably, not safely, but long enough to escape, long enough to fight, long enough to save someone else. One council scientist whispered, "They do not need perfect conditions." "No," another replied softly. "They need enough." The display shifted again. Disease resistance. The council had strict rules about biological threats. Entire worlds had been quarantined and burned to stop outbreaks. The human report listed thousands of known pathogens. Many were marked. Survivable, treatable, diabetes. Then Alien's eyes widened. You carry these inside you? It asked. Yes, the human said. And live? Yes. The chamber grew colder. Deathworld species were proud of their harsh homes. They believed suffering made them strong. But humans did not come from a single harsh condition. They came from all of them. Cold regions, hot deserts, oceans, mountains, cities filled with poison air and noise. The report showed humans adapting again and again, slowly, painfully, but always forward. The High Arbiter finally understood. This was not a species shaped by one Deathworld. It was a species shaped by many. He looked around the chamber. No one was laughing. Now. No one was voting. For the first time in the history of the Deathworld Council, its members felt something close to doubt. Not doubt in the decision, doubt in their understanding. The humans stood quietly as the display reached the final line of this section. Summary. Human physiology does not prioritize survival comfort. It prioritizes survival itself. The system paused. The chamber remained silent. And deep within the minds of the Deathworld Council, a new thought took root. If this was only the human body, what kind of mind lived inside it? The Deathworld Council chamber no longer felt like a place of judgment, but it felt like a place of discovery. The central display shifted again. The words "Standard Human Medical Report" faded, replaced by a new section title, Trauma Response and Continued FUNCTIO. Several council members straightened in their seats. This was their specialty. Deathworld species understood trauma. They lived with it. They respected it. On their worlds, injury meant weakness, and weakness meant death. Survival depended on knowing when the body could no longer continue. The human body, according to everything they believed, should have failed long ago. The High Arbiter gestured for the system to proceed. The first images appeared. A human soldier lay on the ground. One leg twisted at an impossible angle. Blood soaked the earth beneath him. By Deathworld standards, the image alone was enough to declare the subject dead. But the video did not end. The human dragged himself forward, slowly, painfully. His breathing was broken. His face was pale. Every movement caused visible agony, yet he moved. A counter appeared beside the image. Time since fatal injury, 14 minutes law. Sound passed through the chamber. This is staged, said a council warlord from a molten world. No organism continues after that level of damage. The human representative did not react. The display changed. Another human. This one trapped under debris after a structural collapse. Crushed ribs. Internal bleeding. Oxygen levels dropping. The medical notes scrolled beside the image. Subject remained conscious. Provided instructions to rescuers. The council grew uneasy. Why were these humans not panicking? Why were they still thinking? The system continued. A human pilot exposed to vacuum for several seconds. Skin blistered. Eyes damaged. Lungs torn. Subject survived. Returned to duty after recovery. The thin, sharp-eyed alien leaned forward, claws gripping the edge of its seat. Vacuum exposure kills instantly, it said. The human answered calmly. It usually does, he said. Sometimes it doesn't. That word sometimes echoed in the chamber. The Deathworld Council believed survival followed rules. Clear limits. Clear outcomes. Human survival did not respect those rules. Display zoomed in on charts and graphs. Human. Heart failure events. Cardiac arrest. Flatline signals. Several. Council members relaxed slightly. One said. At last. A true limit. The next line appeared. Intervention success rate. Variable but assigned efficient. A human body on a table. Chest opened. Hands pressing directly on a stopped heart. Electric shocks. Chemicals. Injected. The heart started again. Once. Twice. 3 times. The arbiter's eyes widened. You stop, he said slowly. And then restart life? Yes, the human replied. The chamber filled with quiet, disturbed sounds. Among Deathworld species, death was final. When the body stopped, the spirit was gone. That truth was universal, except here. The report continued to explain human medicine was built on the belief that the body could be pushed beyond failure, that death was sometimes negotiable. The council struggled with this idea. A being of crystal structure spoke next. My species fractures once, it said. We do not heal. The display responded. Human bones healing again and again. Thicker, stronger, sometimes imperfect, but functional. Damage improves them. The crystal being whispered. In some cases, the human said. The system moved to another section. Adrenal RSPONS. The images became faster, more violent. Humans lifting wreckage far beyond their normal strength. Humans running on shattered feet. Humans fighting long after blood loss should have ended consciousness. Chemical signals flared across. Diagrams of the human brain. Stress hormones. Survival chemicals. The council recognized the pattern. Every Deathworld species had a similar response, but it lasted seconds. The human response lasted minutes. Sometimes longer. Why does it not burn them out? Asked a council scientist. The human hesitated, just for a moment. It does, he said. Later. That answer unsettled them more than any boast. The report did not hide the cost. Humans suffered permanent damage, chronic pain, mental scars, broken bodies, yet they continued to place themselves in danger. Again. And again. The council began to understand something. Critical. Human survival was not clean. It was not efficient. It was stubborn. The display shifted to a battlefield analysis. Human casualty rates were high. Very high. Yet their lines did not collapse. Units continued to function after losing leaders, limbs, entire squads. The human body was not designed to be perfect. It was designed to keep going when perfection failed. The High Arbiter leaned forward. Why? He asked. The human met his gaze. Because stopping meant death, he said. And we did not accept that. The words were not proud. They were factual. Another section appeared. Pain management, psychological override day. Council braced. This section disturbed them most. Humans experienced pain fully, intensely. Their nervous systems did not dull sensation. They amplified it. By Deathworld logic. This should have ended the species early in its evolution. Instead, humans developed ways to ignore pain. Not eliminate it. Ignore it. The report showed humans focusing on tasks, goals, faces of loved ones, Pain signals remained active, but were pushed aside. The thin alien's voice trembled. "You choose to suffer?" The human answered softly, "Yes." Silence followed. The display showed one final simulation, a composite scenario, multiple injuries, environmental hazards, psychological stress. Every Deathworld species failed within minutes. The human model did not survive easily, but it survived long. Long enough to escape, long enough to adapt, long enough to return. The system ended the section with a simple sentence. Conclusion: human physiology is not optimized for survival. It is optimized for refusal. The words hung in the feeling air. Refusal. Not strength, not dominance. Refusal to stop. Refusal to die. The Deathworld Council sat in stillness. They had faced predators with sharper claws. They had faced worlds more deadly than Earth. But they had never faced a species that treated the limits of the body as a challenge instead of a law. The High Arbiter finally spoke. "This report," he said, "describes monsters." The human shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "It describes people." The lights dimmed further. The council now understood the human body, and that understanding terrified them, because if the body refused to quit, what would the human mind do next? The Deathworld Council had believed they were prepared. They had studied claws, fangs, toxins, and weapons beyond imagination. They had cataloged every known way a body could kill another body. But now the central display shifted away from flesh and bone. A new title appeared: Human Psychological Response to Extreme CONDIONS. The chamber felt colder. Several council members leaned back in their seats. Others leaned forward. All of them were uneasy. Bodies could be measured. Minds were harder. The High Arbiter spoke carefully. "You have shown us what your bodies endure," he said. "Now explain why your species continues to choose suffering." The human representative did not answer at once. He stood quietly, hands at his sides, eyes calm. When he finally spoke, his voice carried no pride. "Because stopping hurts more," he said. The words did not make sense to the council. The system began to play recorded footage. A human child, small and shaking, stood on a frozen surface. Wind screamed around her. Her lips were blue. Her hands were bleeding. She took another step, then another. The medical data showed pain signals at extreme levels. Fear responses fully active, yet she moved forward. "Why?" whispered a council member. The next clip answered. Another human waited. Ahead, injured, unmoving. Child reached them and collapsed. The council understood. The footage changed. A human, trapped in a burning structure. Heat sensors showed skin damage, lungs filling with smoke. The human turned back. Not toward safety, toward cries in the darkness. The report displayed brain scans. Fear was present. Pain was present. Something else overrode them. Purpose identified. Council reacted sharply. Purpose was not a biological trait. It was a choice. The system moved on humans under torture, humans under isolation, humans under psychological pressure meant to break identity, and many suffered severe damage. Some broke, but many did not. Council saw records of humans enduring captivity for years without giving information. Not because they could not feel pain, but because they chose not to give in. The thin, sharp-eyed alien spoke again, its voice low. "In our species," it said, "the mind collapses before the body. Fear ends resistance." The human nodded. "In ours," he said, "fear argues. It does not command." The report displayed neural diagrams. Human brains were chaotic. Emotional centers flared constantly. Logic and emotion were deeply intertwined, by Deathworld standards. This was inefficient, dangerous, yet somehow it worked. The system highlighted a pattern. Humans imagined futures that not just survival, meaning that they endured pain, not only to live but to protect ideas, people, memories, promises. The Council struggled with this. Deathworld species survived for themselves, for the group, for the species. Humans survived for stories. The display showed humans returning to dangerous places after injury. War zones. Disaster areas. Disease regions. Why go back? Asked a Crystalline Council member. Your report shows trauma, fear, lasting damage. The human answered quietly, because someone else will be there. The system shifted again. A new subsection appeared. Human. Resilience. Failure RSPOS. This disturbed the Council deeply. Failure was death on a death world. Failure meant extinction, but humans failed constantly. The report showed humans losing wars, losing cities, losing entire generations, and then rebuilding. Not perfectly, not quickly, but stubbornly. The Council watched images of ruined human cities slowly rising again. Broken people working with damaged bodies. Scarred minds learning to function. Why do they not stop? Asked the Arbiter. The human looked at the floor briefly. Because stopping means nothing changes, he said. That answer carried weight. The system displayed mental health data. Humans suffered depression, fear disorders, trauma responses. Their minds were fragile. Yet, they created systems to help each other survive those fractures. They talked, they shared pain, they told stories, laughed in the face of suffering. The Council had no category for that. One alien scientist spoke with disbelief. You allow weakness to be seen? Yes, the human replied. We do, on Deathworlds. Weakness was hidden or destroyed. Humans exposed it and lived. The display moved to the most dangerous section. Human moral over ID. This section was marked with warnings. The system showed humans choosing to sacrifice themselves, not accidentally, deliberately. Humans jumping into fire. Humans staying behind to delay enemies. Humans holding collapsing structures so others could escape. The medical data was clear. These actions guaranteed death. The Council stiffened. This is madness, said a warlord. Self-destruction? The human shook his head. No, he said. Self-decision. The report explained. Human minds were capable of accepting death if it served a purpose greater than survival. This concept struck the Council like a physical blow. Deathworld species fought to live. Humans fought to choose how they lived and how they died. The system displayed probability models. Species confronted with extinction-level threats. Most collapsed into panic or aggression. Humans did both. Then something else happened. They organized. They argued. They disagreed. And then somehow they acted. Together. Messy. Late. Imperfect. But together. The Arbiter's voice was heavy. You are dangerous, he said. Not because you endure pain, but because you assign meaning to it. The human did not deny this. Yes, he said. The system moved to the final segment. Psychological SUMR. Words appeared slowly, as if the system itself hesitated. Humans experience fear intensely. Humans experience pain fully. Humans imagine futures beyond survival. When faced with suffering, humans ask not only, how do I live, but why? The chamber was silent. The Council understood now. The human body refused to quit, but the human mind was Worse, it did not simply endure, it chose, argued with. Reality, it rebelled against limits, the High Arbiter leaned back for the first time since the trial began. If a species like yours, he said slowly, decides we are the enemy. The thought remained unfinished. The human representative answered anyway. Then we will suffer, he said. And we will continue. The words were not a threat. They were a promise. The lights dimmed. The council realized the truth too late. They were not judging humanity. They were trying to understand a species that could survive pain, failure, fear, and loss, and still decide to stand. And that frightened them more than any weapon ever could. The Deathworld Council believed they had seen everything. They had seen bodies that refused to die. They had seen minds that chose suffering. But what came next unsettled them the most. The central display dimmed, then changed. A new title appeared, plain and quiet. Human Medicine. Expectation of INJURY. Several council members reacted at once. Expectation, not response. Not emergency. Expectation. The High Arbiter narrowed his eyes. You plan for pain, he said slowly. Yes, the human representative replied. We assume it will happen. The council did not understand. On Deathworld's, injury was failure. Medicine existed to delay death, not to invite survival. Healing was rare, expensive, and reserved for the strongest. Human medicine, according to the report, followed a very different path. The system began to display images. Human hospitals. Clean, bright spaces filled with tools. Humans moving calmly among broken bodies. No panic. No fear. Only focus. These places, said a council healer from a venomous world, are close to death zones. Yes, the human said. That's why they exist. The report explained something the council found disturbing. Humans expected accidents. They expected disease. They expected violence. So they built systems not to prevent pain, but to survive it. Display showed a simple list. Broken bones, burns, poisoning, loss of limbs, organ failure. Each had procedures, backup plans, secondary backups. The council struggled with this idea. You prepare for losing parts of yourselves? Asked a crystalline being. Yes. The human answered. The system moved forward. Surgical. INTRVNTIO, and the lights shifted again. Images appeared of human surgery. Bodies cut open. Organs exposed. Hands reaching inside living humans. Several council members recoiled. This is barbaric, said a warlord. Species known for ritual combat. You violate your own bodies. The human did not argue. We repair them, he said. The medical data showed something terrifying. Humans willingly allowed others to cut them open while alive to save their lives. They accepted pain. They accepted scars. They accepted risk. Because survival mattered more than comfort. The council healer trembled slightly. In our culture, it said, to open the body is to invite death. In ours, the human replied, it invites life. The system highlighted anesthesia, chemical sleep, pain suppression, controlled unconsciousness. The council paused. You remove pain? Asked one being. No, said the human. We manage it. That distinction mattered. Pain was never erased, only delayed. Humans accepted that pain would return, simply chose when to face it. The report continued. Field MEDCI in this section hit hardest. The display showed humans treating injuries in battle zones, on rubble, in smoke, under fire. Humans dragging the wounded. Humans applying pressure to stop bleeding. Humans performing emergency surgery with limited tools. Why save the injured? demanded a Deathworld general. They weakened the group. The human looked at him. They strengthen it, he said. The report showed survival rates rising when wounded humans were treated instead of abandoned. Experience was preserved. Trust was built. Humans fought harder knowing they would not be left to die. This concept shocked the council. Deathworld doctrine was simple. The weak fell. The strong advanced. Human doctrine was different. The wounded returned. Again. And again. The display showed prosthetics, artificial limbs, mechanical eyes, synthetic organs, humans replacing parts of themselves with machines. Several council members stared in disbelief. You become something else, whispered one. The human nodded. Double quotes. Yes, he said. And we keep going. The system explained that humans did not see the body as sacred and unchanging. They saw it as adaptable. Repairable. UPGR. ADEABL. This was dangerous thinking. The council felt it. Human medicine was not about preserving purity. It was about refusing limits. The report moved to disease. Human response to ILL and the SS charts appeared. PANDMICS. Outbreaks. Global death events. The council had destroyed entire planets to stop disease spread. Humans did not. They studied. They isolated. They treated. They failed. Then they tried again. The report showed humans injecting weakened versions of diseases into themselves to prepare for future exposure. Several council members gasped. You poison yourselves on purpose? Asked the thin alien. Yes, the human said. To survive later. That answer chilled the chamber. Humans willingly suffered small harm to avoid greater harm. They trained their bodies for sickness. The system showed vaccination. Data. Resistance improving over generations. Diseases becoming manageable. Humans living with conditions that once meant death. The council had no words. Arbiter finally spoke. You assume catastrophe, he said. Why live that way? The human thought for a moment. Because catastrophe happens, he replied. The system moved to mental care. Psychological MEDICI in this section. Surprised the council. Human medicine did not stop at the body. Humans treated broken minds. Trauma. Fear. They talked about pain. They shared it. They created ways to live with it. You do not erase suffering, said the arbiter. You carry it. Yes, the human answered. Together. The council found this unsettling. Weakness shared was weakness multiplied. Or so they believed. Human data showed the opposite. Shared suffering reduced collapse. Trust increased. Survival. Humans healed each other by being present. The report reached its most disturbing point. Medical ETHIs. Humans treated enemies. Humans treated strangers. Humans treated those who had caused harm. Why? Demanded a warlord. The human's voice was steady. Because life matters, he said. Even when it is inconvenient. That sentence struck the council deeply. Human medicine was not neutral. It was moral. It chose preservation over judgment. The system showed cases where humans saved enemies who later became allies. Or who did not. Humans accepted that risk. The arbiter's claws tapped. Slowly. You heal those who may harm you. Again. Yes. That is foolish. Sometimes. The human agreed. But sometimes it changes. Everything. The report neared its end. A final summary appeared. Human medicine assumes injury, failure, and pain. It does not seek perfection. It seeks continuation. The council understood now. Humans did not fear pain. They prepared for it. They built systems around it. They normalized survival after damage. This made them dangerous, not because they were unkillable, but because killing them once was not enough. The High Arbiter leaned back, his voice low. "You do not fear being broken," he said. The human met his gaze. "No," he said. "We fear being unable to help." The chamber fell silent again. Human medicine was not about healing bodies. It was about refusing to give up on them. And the Deathworld Council realized something terrible. A species that expects injury is a species that expects war and survives it. The Deathworld Council had always believed in numbers. Votes were how wars began. Votes were how species ended. The central chamber was built for this purpose. Every seat had a panel. Every panel had 3 choices. Observe, restrict, eliminate, for thousands of cycles. The process had never failed. Until now. The lights brightened slightly, signaling the transition to judgment phase. A low tone echoed through the chamber. The vote was open, and nothing happened. No hands moved. No claws reached out. No energy tendrils touched the panels. The human representative stood quietly at the center, his data tablet dark now. He had said everything he needed to say. The High Arbiter looked around the chamber. He had presided over extermination votes before. Those moments were loud, angry, certain. This chamber was silent, too silent. "You have seen the evidence," the Arbiter said, his voice firm but strained. "The decision must be made." Still, no one moved. A massive council member from a crushing gravity world shifted in its seat. Its armor-like skin creaked softly. "We cannot vote," it said. The words struck the chamber like a shockwave. The Arbiter turned sharply. "Explain." The giant hesitated. "My species survives because we know our limits," it said. "We know when to retreat, when to end a threat quickly." It glanced at the central display, still showing fragments of the human report. "These beings do not respect limits." A murmur passed through the chamber. Another council member spoke. A thin, long-limbed being whose species lived on a world of endless storms. "We have faced stronger enemies," it said. "We have faced faster ones." Its eyes narrowed, but never one that expects to lose. "And plans anyway." The Arbiter felt something cold settle in his chest. "Are you suggesting fear?" he asked. "No," replied the being. "Calculation." The vote panels glowed softly, waiting. The human did not look at them. The council began to speak among themselves. Low voices. Quick exchanges. What happens if we attack? They adapt. They suffer. They continue. A war strategist from a lava world leaned forward. "Our simulations assume standard collapse thresholds," it said. "Human data breaks them." It gestured toward the display. "They do not rout when leadership falls. They do not stop when wounded. They do not surrender when pain exceeds tolerance." The strategist paused. "They keep fighting when logic says stop." The Arbiter raised a claw. "Then they can be destroyed," he said. "Eventually." "Yes," the strategist agreed. "Eventually." The chamber went quiet again. Eventually was a dangerous word. On Deathworlds, war was fast or fatal. Prolonged conflict meant resource collapse, environmental ruin, extinction. Another council member spoke. An ancient being whose species had survived by isolation and patience. "What happens after we destroy them?" It asked. The question hung in the air. The system answered with simulations. Human population centers damaged. Human fleets shattered. Human worlds burned. Casualties were enormous. But then the projections continued. Smaller. Groups survived. Hidden groups. Scattered. Groups. They rebuilt. They learned. They returned. The simulations ended with a simple note. Conflict termination. Yen Sun Viv I reader felt the weight of that. Phrase. Unconfirmed. No clean ending. No final silence. The council realized something terrifying. Killing humanity would not end humanity. It would transform it. A warlord slammed his panel in frustration. This is unacceptable. He growled. Every species has a breaking point. The human finally spoke again. Yes, he said. So do we. The warlord turned sharply. Then where is it? He demanded. The human met his gaze. You haven't reached it, he said. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. The council felt them settle deep. The arbiter stood slowly. This council does not rule by fear, he said. We rule by survival. He looked at the panels. To eliminate a species is to accept the cost. He turned to the human. What is the cost of eliminating yours? The human did not answer immediately. He lifted his tablet once more. The display changed. Post-conflict. Human behavior. Historical RECORD. Council stiffened. Images appeared. Human. History. Wars that devastated continents. Weapons that scarred the planet itself. Yet the data did not focus on destruction. It focused on aftermath. Humans caring for the wounded. Humans rebuilding cities from ruins. Humans remembering. Memorials. Stories. Names. The human spoke quietly. If you attack us, he said, we will suffer. The images showed suffering. But we will remember. He continued. The images shifted. Education systems. Cultural memory. Stories passed down. And we will teach our children why. The arbiter felt a deep, ancient unease. What happens then? He asked. The human's voice did not change. Then, the war never really ends. The council understood. Humans did not erase pain from memory. They preserved it. They carried it forward, not as hatred always, but as warning. As motivation. A strategist whispered. They turned loss into fuel. The vote panels flickered. Some dimmed slightly. One council member, a healer species, spoke softly. If we do nothing, it said, what happens? The human answered honestly. We continue, he said, as we always have. That answer carried no threat, just certainty. The arbiter looked around the chamber. These were not cowards. These were survivors, and every one of them understood the same truth. Now, humanity was not dangerous because it was strong. It was dangerous because it was persistent, because it absorbed pain and turned it into motion. The arbiter raised his claw again. The vote must conclude, he said. He paused. Those in favor of elimination, act. Seconds passed. Then minutes. No one moved. The system chimed softly. Voting. Stalemate. That had never happened before. The chamber systems dimmed. Confused, council members stared at the panels, as if they might bite. The warlord growled low in his throat, but did not press his vote. The strategist folded its limbs. The healer looked away. Finally, the arbiter spoke the words no arbiter had ever spoken. The vote is suspended. A shock ran through the chamber. The system confirmed it. Extermination. Protocol HL. The human exhaled quietly, not in relief. In feign. Acceptance. The arbiter fixed his gaze on the human. I've changed the equation, he said. The human nodded. That was the intention. The arbiter turned back to the council. We will reconvene, he said, with new classifications. The lights dimmed further. The vote panels powered down. In the ancient chamber, built to decide who lived and who vanished. The most powerful council in known space had failed to act, not because they were weak, but because, for the first time, survival itself argued against destruction. And at the center of it all stood one human, who had not raised a weapon, had not issued a threat, and yet had stopped extinction with truth alone. The Deathworld Council had not spared humanity. They had paused on, and sometimes, for a species like humans, that was all it took.